Imagine living your entire life trying to meet expectations that were never yours, feeling lost and confused, carrying the weight of everyone's opinions except your own. This is how many people live, trapped in a cycle of pleasing others while neglecting who they truly are. Soren Kierkegaard, considered the father of existentialism, would say that this is a sign of despair, not the kind that screams, but the silent despair of someone who has forgotten themselves. In this text, we will explore how Kierkegaard teaches us to find our true identity, free ourselves from societal expectations, and live for ourselves. For Kierkegaard, despair is an existential condition. It is not just common sadness or melancholy, but something deeper, a disconnection from one's true self. He describes two types of despair: the despair of being unaware of oneself, where a person lives like a puppet molded by social demands and norms, and the despair of knowing who you are but lacking the courage to embrace it, paralyzed by fear of judgment and insecurity. How many times have you suppressed your desires or decisions out of concern for what others might think? This is the despair that Kierkegaard condemns, living as if you were someone else. For him, the antidote to this despair is choice, but not just any choice. It is the radical decision to live an authentic life aligned with your own values and desires. He believed that each of us has the responsibility to create our own existence. We are free, but that freedom is terrifying because it requires us to take on the risks and consequences of our choices. Many prefer the safety of conformity, following the crowd, and obeying expectations because it relieves them of the weight of responsibility. However, as Kierkegaard warns, the greatest risk of all is taking no risks. He proposes 3 stages of existence. The aesthetic stage. In this stage, we seek pleasure and avoid responsibility. We live to satisfy immediate desires, but over time, this leads to superficiality and emptiness. The ethical stage. Here, we begin to reflect on our choices and take responsibility for who we are. It marks the beginning of a more authentic life. The religious stage. This is the highest stage, where we embrace the totality of our existence by connecting with something greater than ourselves, whether spiritual or philosophical. Each stage is an opportunity for growth, but we only reach the most authentic stage when we confront despair and choose to live consciously. One of the greatest barriers to living for yourself is the fear of what others will think. Kierkegaard recognized this fear as a powerful trap, but he also knew that overcoming it was essential for freedom. He teaches us that true happiness cannot be found outside ourselves. It does not matter how many people approve or disapprove of your choices. If they are not authentic, you will remain dissatisfied. For Kierkegaard, living for yourself does not mean being selfish or ignoring others. It means living with intentionality, aligning your actions with your deepest values. Authenticity is not a state you reach once and for all. It is a continuous process of reflection, choice, and action. It is a journey that requires courage but also offers the reward of a full and meaningful life. When you choose to live for yourself, you begin to experience a freedom that few know. You are no longer bound by the expectations or rules imposed by others. You become the author of your own story, someone who decides what matters and how to live. But this freedom comes with a cost: responsibility. Kierkegaard reminds us that the freedom to choose also means accepting the consequences of our choices. It is in this balance between freedom and responsibility that we find the true meaning of our lives. Kierkegaard challenges us to make the most important decision of our lives, to live for ourselves. This does not mean ignoring others or acting impulsively, but aligning our actions with our values and taking responsibility for who we are. As he reminds us, the most common thing is for people to simply exist, but not truly live. For Kierkegaard, Reflection is the starting point for any transformation. He invites us to deeply question, am I living for myself or merely reacting to others' expectations? What masks am I wearing to avoid the discomfort of being myself? What steps can I take today to get closer to my true essence? Most people, he argues, get lost in the noise of everyday life, avoiding these questions because they are uncomfortable. After all, the answers might reveal that we are living a life that is not truly ours. The Danish philosopher believed that the greatest mistake is not failing in our choices but never making a choice at all. This lack of choice keeps us in the aesthetic stage, where life is driven by distractions and momentary pleasures. However, Kierkegaard warns us that this comfort zone is actually a prison, a place where we never experience true freedom or meaning. Choosing to live for yourself is not always easy. Often, it means facing pain, failures, and rejections. But he believed that suffering is an essential part of personal growth. He wrote, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." This reflection reminds us that the suffering and challenges we face make sense when we look at what we have learned and how they have shaped us. For Kierkegaard, suffering is not something to be avoided but a tool that awakens us to the reality of who we are. It is through suffering that we learn to disconnect from illusions created by external expectations and come closer to our essence. Living for yourself means embracing the freedom of choice but also carrying the responsibility for those choices. Kierkegaard describes this responsibility as a burden, but one worth carrying. He teaches that freedom is not about doing whatever we want but about doing what is right for us. This distinction is crucial because living authentically requires sacrifice. It means saying no to easy paths and yes to what truly matters, even when it is difficult. A central aspect of Kierkegaard's philosophy is the idea that many people live with a false self. This false self is built to please others, conform to social norms, or avoid the discomfort of being different. But he argues that living this way is a betrayal of oneself. He challenges us to recognize when we are living a life that is not authentic and to have the courage to abandon these masks, even if it puts us in conflict with the world around us. In the final stage of existence, Kierkegaard describes an encounter with something greater, the religious stage. Here, a person not only lives for themselves but finds meaning in something transcendent, whether in a spiritual, philosophical, or existential sense. At this stage, life is no longer lived in pursuit of external validation or momentary pleasures but with a deep sense of purpose. This stage requires faith, not necessarily in a traditional religious sense, but faith in oneself, in life, and in the journey we choose. To live for yourself, according to Kierkegaard, is the most courageous thing one can do. It is not an easy path, but it is the only one that leads to true freedom and profound meaning. It is an invitation to take control of your life, face challenges with courage, and reconnect with who you truly are. As Kierkegaard brilliantly stated, the door to happiness opens outward, and those who try to force it open inward only close it further. For Kierkegaard, the greatest obstacle to living authentically is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of discovering that what we believe to be true is merely an illusion. He challenges us to confront this fear and understand that living authentically is, above all, an act of courage. Living for yourself does not mean selfishness or isolation. On the contrary, it is the path to offering the world your most genuine contribution. When you live authentically, your actions and choices reflect your true essence, allowing you to connect more deeply with others and with the world around you. As you reflect on Kierkegaard's ideas, ask yourself, am I living according to my own choices or molding myself to others' expectations? What steps can I take today to get closer to my true self? These questions may not have easy answers, but they are fundamental for those who seek to live fully and meaningfully. The journey to living for yourself is not linear or without challenges, but it is the only path that leads to a life rich in purpose and authenticity. Each choice, mistake, and triumph is part of this construction, and Kierkegaard reminds us that it is in this process that we find true freedom.